Hello, I think I got everything. Let me make sure we looking good. One moment. Gotta always do that audio check.
Mic check.
Right. All right, everybody. Well, welcome back, adventurers, to another episode of Lore Drop Live. I'm Dungeon Master Eguile.
And I'm DnDWife, your partner in all things dice, dragons, and creative chaos.
Tonight, we're diving deep into backstories. How you go from a 10-page epic to something that you can pretty much create on the fly at the table.
Plus, we'll be taking a look at 5e's pre-made backstories versus the new updated ones in D&D One. Which ones are worth your time?
And as always, we're answering your questions live, so throw them into chat and let's build some awesome characters together.
Grab your favorite beverage, roll initiative, and let's get started.
As always, thank you, everyone. Hey, Recon, thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining us. I know we're starting a little early today. We might be trying out a different time. 6 o'clock seems to be a little better for us, so we might be doing this more often. So we're seeing how this goes. But welcome, everyone, again to episode 2 of Lore Drop Live. That's 2 for you. So we obviously like it enough to do it again. All right, Ivy, we hear you. But yes, if you had been with us on the last one 2 weeks ago, we were talking about flaws in the character creation process. Ivy, we get it, but you got fed. You're gonna look like cat abusers.
I'll bet.
Let me get my thing out of the way here a little bit. I can rotate it bit better. There we go. So we had talked about flaws and essentially how you can make them both more organic as well as not so cliche in the kind of features of, creating characters and designing ideas. So we figured the next approximate kind of move would be the character backstory. Now, this is something that I think is an issue of contention for many a player and also a dungeon master, as I have had the range of players that have both given me what would be a epic, like long-winded story, all the way to somebody who basically wasn't prepared at all and had nothing. So it's a gambit.
That comparison in the intro with the 10-page and the fly, that is accurate. So we've experienced everything in between.
But it's... What I find is that a lot of players, especially new players, whether it's to Dungeons & Dragons or if you're trying to build your own character itself, struggle with backstories. And as a dungeon master, I feel like you get kind of the express route for it, in that you have to make a lot of different NPCs, backstories, characters, villains, all of these different things that go into making a D&D campaign or a session. So you get kind of fast-tracked in constantly making different backstories and understanding that just like a player, doesn't want their DM to have to read through all of that, a player doesn't want to listen to the longest story of the random stable hand who can tell you the 40-year history of his family and goes into
his lineage dating all the way back.
But at the same time, if he's just answering like, I don't know,
maybe
I live over there.
Sure.
I don't know. I don't know why I'm here. I'm just here because, I poofed into existence because the magical clicky clackies told me I exist.
Yeah.
So really, we wanted to open up tonight's discussion. And as always, if you have any questions, please throw them out in the chat. We'll try to get them as best as we can. We're a little spastic, so sometimes we're too much into the point, but we will try to answer any questions that are given. If you do the channel reward, your question will be answered instantly.
Yep.
So really where we wanted to look at first is more about kind of where to start in your backstory. And really what I have told many of players is less is more.
Definitely.
It's in the context of just like your favorite stories, depending on where they are in their adventures. You kind of expect certain levels of what they've already accomplished. The examples, I think a good one, that's always a big one to me was the Hercules with Kevin Sorbo, right? Because it was supposed to be Hercules in the early days. You knew the story, but obviously where they're coming at in it, you're not getting everything. You're not getting this epic whip. It's letting you go, okay, you know who his character is. Here's his basic justification. Here's what he does, and we're gonna let the story build more into the character, even if we know what it is. Like obviously we know Hercules' trials and stuff like that. But we don't know when those will come. We don't know how they will come, and how maybe there might be some changes.
Yeah, different interpretations of what happened, right? Because it's all myth.
Yeah, and so when you try to cement your backstory in too much, you get into that issue of what we've kind of coined. It's just like, what more can happen to your character at this point?
Yeah, that's true, right? If you've spent so many hours building up this elaborate backstory, what else is there to do or write about in the adventure that you're going to have?
Yeah, and so so the idea to really focus on is kind of finding that healthy middle, right? Not coming in with this nothing, not just being like, okay, well, we'll see when it happens. I'm Aragorn in the corner of the tavern. If someone talks to me, cool. If not, whatever.
Oh, well. I'm cool with that too.
And so, but you also want to have something. So what I always say is like 1 to 2 paragraphs is really where to start, right? With your first paragraph being essentially kind of the basics of what the character has in their story, right? It has in their life. So it's like, okay, they have a family, they don't have a family, they have siblings, they have a mother, father, they have whatever, a hometown, a home location. You start that in the first paragraph. Your bare bones, like if someone asked you, hey man, where are you from? And tell me a little bit, not in detail, like obviously when I speak to strangers about myself, if I'm like, I'm a streamer or I'm a dungeon master, I don't go, oh yeah, Dungeons and Dragons is this game. Yeah, it has first edition, and then they, in the first edition, the dungeon master doesn't roll, or the only one that rolls dice is the dungeon master. Oh, now there's 2
Let me break it down for you.
You're not going to do that much background work. You're going to kind of surmise a little bit and give kind of the bare bones. I play Dungeons and Dragons. It's this game where we all get together. It's collaborative storytelling. Boom, 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 boom. And now if they happen to come play and visit or jump onto the YouTube or whatnot, now they're going to get more of the backstory naturally.
Yeah.
And then in your second paragraph, then you put like at least 1 or 2 depending on your level. Now, the higher your level, there should be a few more paragraphs.
Yeah.
But the next level of paragraph should basically be the different things that you have done.
Accomplishments.
Right. And now I don't say accomplishments necessarily, because it can be both negative and positive. But you want to limit it to 1 to 2 different positive or negative interactions, right? I think a perfect example, I know you know where I'm going to go with this one, is a character we had named Milo.
Oh, yeah.
We started at level 3. This was a halfling character, so we obviously know, if you don't know actually, not to make assumptions, halfling characters are not the most longest living characters, and so, but they age fast and life hits them like a ton of bricks.
Yeah, I think it's like 12 to 13 years.
This person, though they didn't have a very long backstory, it wasn't pages upon pages, in their like actions that have happened in their lives, there was so much tragedy. It was first it was couple of family members and all the village gets murdered and captured by slavers. Parents get killed in front of him. Him and his brother are pieces of their toes are removed, and then they're taught the ways of a thief, and then they're enslaved, and then he gets into where he's almost dead and kills the main guy, and then he's on a boat, and then he learns from, and it was like, okay, cool, great story. But you're a starting adventurer, right? You're level 3 or level 1. Yeah, we started level 1. So you have 0 skills, yet you have had such a story. You've already had a campaign and a half before your character has even attacked his first enemy in the game.
That's crazy.
And mind you, hilarity, we've joked about this a lot. That same character also died in their first round of combat ever to a critical attack from a wolf.
Yeah.
So it just shows that like you don't know what's going to happen. Because narratively, if we just looked at it narratively, this character would be a fucking mess.
Oh, yeah.
There wouldn't be...
The PTSD
and mind
alone.
you, as the player played them, they were this casual, jokey person. They were, sure, a little paranoid.
Yeah.
But they were always wisecracking. They were laughing at everything. They were asking crazy questions. It wasn't really reflective of essentially what would be someone who probably would have the worst case of PTSD in their lives.
Yeah.
That it would be so crazy because of how much they've experienced. Now, as we played the story, I kind of messed with the background and I tried to give it a little bit of liveliness so that way it's it's not necessarily the most horrific story on earth.
Yeah.
But it just shows that like he only had a few sentences, but in those sentences there was so much depth to the background.
So much.
So you want to kind of limit it to only a few major actions within your character's design, right? It's kind of like that. We play. What I tend to do as a dungeon master and as a tip as dungeon masters is make your players always have their characters be at whatever the coming of age of that character's race is.
That is always fun.
I know it kind of removes a little bit of agency, like if someone wants to be like the 180-year-old dwarf.
Yeah.
Cool, I get it. But when making backstories, it sometimes helps because it gives you even more of that fresh sense where it's like, hey, all of your life as a child, that was set up already. You were fine. You were fine, right? Like, your parents were there, your life, you went to school, you got your basic education, you're ready to go.
Yeah.
You picked a profession, then all hell broke loose.
Yeah.
But until then, it allows the players a little bit more freedom to where they don't have to worry about, okay, do I need to make this like super every step of the way convoluted story for my character before I've even played session 1?
It's just keep it simple, right? That's the key here. As a player, I think I've had a couple of characters under my belt now, and I think I tend to agree that simpler is better, but you don't want to leave too much out either. So, I do balance it a little bit. Like Alira, she was a half elf, so started off mom, half elf and father, didn't know who my dad was. We're a part of a Vistani tribe of traveling performers, and I went to school in Waterdeep, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
I zhuzhed it up a little bit, so it was like a couple of paragraphs, but that was pretty much like the start of Alira, and the rest was just up to the storytelling. And I think that's the point of a background, right? It's not supposed to be the story. It's just supposed to be the foundation of one.
No, I got you. And I think you put a really good point. And my players know this is, something you got to watch out for is also when you build your background, and a thing to note is there's so much that you kind of are giving to your dungeon master. Now, I understand that most people take an opportunity to build a background, and you think to yourself, okay, this is my time to shine. This is my opportunity to build a character in a world, and I have 100% agency. But I give you this notice to think about as well. What you put in that backstory is also what the dungeon master is able to do, right?
True.
And so I put this into two ways. One is cutting loose ends and allowing loose ends to be there.
Yeah.
So if you have something, so I will give you that tried and true. If you put in your character's backstory, you have the happy family, mom and dad are alive, and you have 8 siblings.
Yep.
Somebody's gonna die. Some kind of tragedy is gonna happen because that's what you set yourself up for, right? Not saying you have to put in. Now, I've had some players where they intentionally will go and make sure like every emotional connection has been severed so that there's no way you can get to my iron heart because it's already been broken. But there's always ways you can get around that.
Oh, yeah,
but
definitely.
By doing that, you can allow certain moments to be played into the story as you go. I mean, look at, for example, like Critical Role, right? So many of their stories, they share with their dungeon master. So they don't necessarily give their entire backstory to begin with, right? They're not going to share everything. The dungeon master might know everything.
Hidden.
And so you might have a kind of rolling backstory where it's like, hey, I have all these things, but I don't want to introduce them, but can you provide an opportunity eventually, right?
Yeah.
So I think
the possibility.
I think the easiest way, the one that always stuck to me, was for Percy, right? For the character Percy in Campaign 1, where he had this backstory that Matt knew and no one else did. Mind you, he had not mentioned any of this in the entirety of probably was like 50 or so episodes in the campaign, right? But when the word the Briarwoods was used as almost like a thrown out thing, when it was just, oh yeah, the Briarwoods had come by to seek counsel, and being that was written, you actually can watch that point. Go back and watch that episode. You can see where Taliesin literally kind of pauses midway. He's not even in the conversation. He's writing something down, and he just goes, wait, hold on.
What?
Because he kind of then at that point knew the dungeon master is going, hey, it's your turn.
Ding,
It's
ding.
your turn to start kind of having this opportunity to unload and give more information to your backstory. So what it is when it comes to not only looking at like this, like, 2-paragraph design, but think of it also like these different threads that are going out from your backstory, right? And so you want to have some that are what I call like easy picking, the low-hanging fruit, right? Like you got a dog, a family member, whatever. Obviously, you leave some of those, you give yourself an opportunity, okay, hey, maybe something's going to happen. They're going to be kidnapped, or, eventually we might interact with those characters. I think an example would be Brenna, right?
Oh, yeah, I love
So
Brenna.
Brenna's story she was raised with her mother, right?
Yeah.
So, of course, as the story went on, that could have never have happened, right?
Yeah.
Like it could be, Brenna's mom's in the story, whatever.
She's somewhere in the world.
But then because the players wanted to meet said mother and knew because of the story and the backstory that Brenna gave, that engaged more of the story for Brenna to be built organically, right? Instead of it being where like, oh yeah, I wrote everything of what my mom and I did and it's over and I'm gone, and whether it's my mom's on my mom's stuck in ice somewhere, or my mom's a bear, as the running joke was.
It was an Irish accent, not a Scottish accent. Okay.
Yeah, for our table, you might as well have been a French accent. No one's gonna really know the difference. But it is that thing where it's like, you want to create both open and closed doors for your backstory to both allow you some kind of leeway when making it. Like, because honestly, less is more with your backstory, but you have to still have a little bit.
Something.
There needs to be a little bit of meat on the hook for order for you to get the attention of whether it's your dungeon master or your fellow players.
Oh, yeah.
So always look at your story and go, okay, how far can this go off? Now, do I have a villain? Now, do I reveal that, or do I let my dungeon master slowly bring that in? Because obviously, if you introduce a villain at level 1 and you make it just like we hear in our favorite shows, right? Like, good example, Power Rangers, right?
Yep.
Whole basis of season 1, Rita Repulsa, right? That is the enemy. We are introduced to her at round 1.
Yeah.
But there's so much more lore to the world, right? We end up learning about Lord Zed and all this other stuff. They could have just started that to begin with. We could have learned about the whole thing to begin with, but instead they kind of pieced it in, right?
Yeah.
Because it depends on when you want to introduce. Now, if you introduce this enemy at level 1, the starting of your story,
Right.
it's gonna automatically be inferred by your by your fellow players and your dungeon master. Oh, this is his like enemy. This is like his main adversary, his rival, and you're like, oh no, this is just like some guy I was throwing into my story. Versus if you wait until you're level 7, right? And now your character's talking about this person they interact with. Now it's like, oh shit, like if they're still talking when we've gained these abilities and we become almost slightly closer to being demigods, and they're still worried about this person, like, well, we've never even heard of this person. Now that character that enemy can have a lot more weight to your backstory than just being you wrote a quick line and you didn't realize it was going to become something much more important.
I think that's a really good point.
Right.
There have been a couple of those where we've kind of made them into the villains. Just by like the nature of our interactions with them,
not understanding what's going on.
Yeah.
But I think the other facet and kind of my third tip when it comes to making backstories is have a buddy.
Yeah.
Backstory,
buddies are
buddy.
good.
And that's not the dungeon master.
No.
Not the dungeon master.
It's not his job.
Honestly, you always want to share all your information with the dungeon master, but at the same time, he's got a lot of people to deal with. That's a lot of things to take care of. Yeah. I run a table with 6 players. That's a lot of backstories.
Right.
But if you have a player who is a friend, a spouse, or whatever you want to call it, you can have them help you at the table with your backstory and providing different situations for you to kind of almost like be setting up the layup, right? Versus having to have like all your fellow players not really understanding what's going on. Now, a way that I can put this into example is I have a relic that I need to give to a certain player. Like I know as the dungeon master that this is the crest to their villain and they want it and they've been looking for this. But at the end of the day, it's just a ring. It's just a signet ring that matters to no one really, except for one particular player. But as D&D always goes, that player didn't get the damn item.
All right.
So now it's just given to another player who has no clue what the item is, and the other player trying to not metagame or interfere or do anything, especially when they don't want to draw attention.
Yeah. Or they don't know because the other player kept the loot secret.
Well, they don't know, right?
Yeah.
And so when you have a fellow player who also is privy to your backstory, kind of knows the different, hey, I'm looking for this to happen, or if we go to this town, I know these guys, and these are the guys that like killed my, my best friend's dog or something, whatever it is. But by having a partner, they can also kind of run and help you into certain situations. So when they happen to find an item or hear from a fellow player about an item, they can be like, oh, wait. You found a what? Oh, well, let me not and obviously we try not to metagame, but it's unrealistic to think nobody metagames. We all freaking metagame,
and we all want to help each other at some level.
But the idea being that with that is you have another player who can then find ways to bring that over and being like, oh, hey, you found this strange signet ring, and it kind of, then the other player has to kind of be like, oh, wait a minute, like, why are they bringing, and then they can introduce organically their story into the play without having it. There's nothing more annoying. I don't know. I'll ask your opinion on this one. I don't know. There's something annoying. I just think the scene of just 5 or 4 random adventurers sitting down and just being like, all right, here's my adventuring resume. Let me just give the list of every traumatic experience I've ever had, my whole story. And then after we spend the 8.5 hours of talking about ourselves, now we've done that. We know everything about each other. Let's go adventure.
There's nothing to hide.
It doesn't make sense to me. Adventuring is not a getting together forum online where everyone can drop like a 12-page essay. So you want to also have that organic component to it. And I know we were talking about this in the beginning, right? Of you don't want to necessarily, hey, what's up, goth chick? How's it going? Thank you. Appreciate it. But you don't want to necessarily also plan everything out. And I think this goes in really well with your current character, which I think is hilarious on this fact.
Alternatively, when you've got a couple characters under your belt and you're a little bit more of a senior player, a really good thing to do, especially if you're bored and you're looking for a challenge with your characters, is to not know your backstory at all and leave it completely up to your DM.
Some people might claim it's a little cheater, but I think it's an interesting way to change it up because there's a lot of people that I feel when you write a certain backstory, you put a little bit too much onus on the dungeon master, right? So if you say, hey, my family was murdered by X gang and they must be avenged. But the problem is okay, well, what happens when you do avenge them? And because your character at the very beginning was so consumed by vengeance, your dungeon master is like, oh shit, well, okay, you're the gang, the next enemy is the gang, you wipe them out, and then it becomes, okay, well, now what's your motivation? Because your entire backstory was based around this one incident. So what I always say is you want to have what is the backstory. What was what got your character, hey, Aunt Link, hello. What is the reason for your character to get started? And that's it. It's kind of the easiest way to look at it is almost, especially in Dungeons and Dragons, is just look at it like a profession, right? Where does your character's skills come from? Where does that innate start happen? And just like we were saying with the 2-paragraph system, very easily. First, give those basic information, that basic general kind of family tree, whatever, and then you're a little bit of drama. A little bit of drama, trauma, doesn't matter what it is, but something there to give your character a little depth, and then
flavor.
Leave it be. Let everything else go from there. You don't need to go every year, every instance, everything.
Because books don't do that.
Right, because those issues will make a character, and you can just roll with it at that point. Because at the same time, you don't need to fill every gap of every moment of your character's life.
No way. And on the leaving your background kind of blank, I would put a little disclaimer on that. You should consult with your DM before choosing that type of background.
There's a difference between making a short background and not making a background at all, right? Meaning like, hey, why are you here? I don't know. I'm just here. Like, I'm a guy who wants money. It's like, okay, why? Well, where'd you come from? Next town over. You have parents? I don't know.
Sure.
So it's one of those things where, like, obviously, right, like, you want to, kind of control a little bit of your backstory, but also not fret yourself of being locked too much into it. it really, the saying is as cliche and annoying as it is, less is more. But really, switching into the next topic is more of looking at the background system. And this is what I love of Dungeons and Dragons is they do have a little bit of kind of a system for backgrounds built into it. Now, there are two competing systems right now, and I myself, as a dungeon master, I kind of use an amalgamation of both to make my own homebrew version, because I think both kind of have their pros and cons.
Me too.
But the biggest thing of all is that these are great ways to start where your character is at. Because what, for me, these are ways to mechanically put some narrative into the story.
Yeah, create a little extra for your background.
Because it can fill in, and what I recommend is don't necessarily always look at the backgrounds and go to the ones that like match, right? So it's like, oh, I'm a cleric, I have to have the priest background.
Well, no.
Why?
Not necessarily.
When you do that, you very much limit. So now your profession and your background are so aligned that, okay, so essentially what you're telling me is you grew up in the church and you're a church person and you do church things and you went to church and you're churchy and church.
Yeah.
Really, so
it's a little boring.
It limits your breadth of knowledge and kind of that way that you can do it, because obviously when you do the words part of your backstory, you can do anything. So you have that ability to do that. But by using the D&D backgrounds, you can have some really cool, interesting narrative effects. And a good example I have on this is Critical Role. And I brought this up to D&D and she didn't know it. And that's what I love about it. It's such a nuanced thing. So Pike Trickfoot, right, which is a war cleric in the whole story. Her background is actually sailor.
Yeah,
because
weird, right?
She picked it just as I think is from when they had the home system and all these kind of things, and it came out as the story progressed when they got to an issue where they had to be on a ship, and it was like, oh well, because she never. I mean, it may have came out in the original backstory, but it probably had been years since the players had heard this information, and to have that like in the pocket, that hidden kind of thing with your backstory, really, I think changes the depth of the character, because now we already knew, she was from these family of con men, and she had this whole background, and that she actually had died and been resurrected and had this whole new faith, because originally she followed the Storm Lord, which was a common deity of sailors. So it just shows there's so much depth there that was used by using the Dungeons and Dragons backgrounds. Now, really there's a little bit of contention because there are two very distinct styles. Now, I'm going to pull them up. You're gonna lose our pretty faces, but we're still here. Don't worry. We're still here, people. We're still here. Don't run anyway. So, in the 2014 versions, this is how crazy we're looking at, guys. When this first came out, these were your principal backgrounds, right? These kind of set you up for success or failure. And what was cool was that this is all they gave you, right? So as you can see, it's just your background, two proficiencies related to that background. You get a tool plus languages and a feature that was like a special thing. So
a cool little thing.
So if you're, a soldier, you are actually a soldier in the military. So obviously you can pull some weight. If you're a folk hero, the townsfolk might, bring
rally
you in
behind you.
But they were all really narrative based. They kind of gave you a thing. But the issue is nobody really used these.
Right. They were just kind of additives that no one cared about.
It was flavor that nobody really tasted. And that was the issue. Though they were great because you got these proficiencies, you got languages, all these that tied with your background, which makes sense. The abilities didn't really do enough to make a justification for it. So it ended up being, like you said, oh, okay, I'm a priest, I'm an acolyte.
Yep.
Okay, I'm a fighter, I'm a folk hero, or I'm a soldier.
Yeah.
That's all really because they need to give me those skills, because other than that, I can pick whatever I want. So it doesn't really matter. There's no incentive to do other things. But that's where D&D One really kind of, I think, changed it up. Now, this one's a little different. This one's a little different because I had to mock something up.
And it's a little weird, too. Yeah.
So what they changed it up to do, though, in the new backgrounds, is that your background actually ties to what skills you get in terms of stat points. So as you can see, each one of the original backgrounds now has corresponding stats to it. So, for example, on the top there, you see Acolyte. You can choose to put one extra stat point in intelligence, wisdom, or charisma,
That's cool.
or do 2 in one and 1 in another, right? So you can pick from those, giving you much more balance and making the backgrounds be much more important.
Yeah, a little versatile too.
The other thing which I really, really loved was the fact is they added feats to each one.
That's a good one.
Right. Instead of gaining these like little abilities.
These little joke like abilities, really,
cool.
is what I talk about.
Folk
Flavor
hero.
abilities.
Yeah, cool. No, now you get something tangible, right? So you're a wizard, you get magic initiate.
Yeah.
So you get some free spells. You already can know some cantrips because obviously you're a wizard, Harry.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you already know these things? But what that does now is that allows not only these like mixes and matches. Like if you look at that original list, and I'll pull it up real quick, and I was laughing. It's like if you look at criminal, if you're a wizard, criminal is one of the best ones to take because of the things that you get from it. You would have never probably thought of that because there wasn't really an incentive to pick it with the 2014 version. So really what I wanted to show with these backgrounds is that you can use them both to be the basis for your characters. So you can go, okay, let me look at this background. I'm going to pick thief. Okay, cool. I'm going to go from there and then pick anything from there, right? Pick any class. I'm a druid thief.
Cool, right?
Don't necessarily feel like your background and your background selection need to be anywhere next to each other. They can be completely opposite, and sometimes that's going to give you a more in-depth character because organically you're going to have all these kind of options to go in. You have the options of being a druid and a thief. If you're a thief,
then all you can do is steal.
You're a thief, right?
Yeah.
You're a rogue and you're a thief.
Okay.
So
Yay.
you do roguish things, which are thiefy things, right?
Yep.
That's going to kind of pigeonhole you and in turn make your character a little harder to play and a little harder to play with.
Especially when we're trying to create these like actual realistic characters that feel like they live in the world, because that's the whole point, is that we get to kind of live in a separate world for a little bit. And so to make it so flat kind of takes you out of it, right? It ruins your own immersion into the character, into the world, into the campaign you're in.
Yeah, so I think my final point when it comes to in this section of for backgrounds is just really the idea of less is more.
Yeah.
And let the table build your character story. Just kind of get the bare roots, right? You know, you're just like if you were sitting on the subway and you were talking to a stranger. How in depth do you go with your backstory when you tell them about yourself?
Yeah.
Do
How do you introduce yourself?
Do that. It makes it feel much more organic. And then as the story goes and as more things impact your character, or you and your story buddy or the dungeon master start building more. In fact, you might learn even more, and with the help of your dungeon master, now this backstory is way more ingrained on your character, and your fellow players as well can now be a part of it because they have an understanding of where it is and where it's going, and they're not just being bogged down by details they don't really care about at the end of the day, because your character is the most important thing to you. But it's not always necessarily easy to understand that from another player's perspective or the dungeon master's.
Right. Remember that your backstory is not the book, right? You're not the backstory is not your novel. It's your epilogue or your prologue. The campaign is your novel, and that's what you're going to be writing once you're done with your background.
Yeah. So I mean, and that's where we really want to kind of focus on tonight when it comes to. Let me do something right here. Make sure, okay. Want to make sure nobody's stuck in an ad break before we end here. But really, that's kind of the last point we really wanted to end on, is just that really don't get too bogged down. 2 paragraphs. That's all you really need. Let's not make this a college essay exam.
Yeah, you don't need so much.
2 paragraphs will give plenty of information. And like we said, first one, basic information. Second one, trauma or achievements.
Yeah.
Do that and have a buddy and just go with the flow. And if you do that, watch, your characters are going to feel so much more alive, be so much deeper of characters, and feel much more connected to you as a player.
Absolutely. And this translates to DMs creating NPCs. This translates to writers writing characters and creating, elaborate stories that they want to share. This all translates over to different types of storytelling. So I definitely recommend it.
Because we say that too. I recommend all writers out there, get yourself a Dungeon Master's Guide and the Player's Handbook. You'll be amazed at how much of the gamer stuff will help you write your fantasy characters in your various novels.
Absolutely, absolutely. But that's going to wrap up tonight's episode of Lore Drop Live. Thanks for hanging out with us, guys.
We hoped you picked up a few tips to make your next character's backstory shine, whether it's a quick one-liner or a sprawling tale of glory.
And don't forget to catch past episodes over on our YouTube channel, Couple of Nerds Productions, and follow us here on Twitch so you don't miss the next live session.
Next, in 2 weeks, we're going to be jumping into the next aspect of character creation. We're going to be talking about those numbers, what they mean, how do we come up with them, so that way you're not just rolling the numbers, you know why and how you do.
Also, catch us later on here. We're going to be streaming with Powder as we play some Project Zomboid. This will be super
we
fun.
have not got to stream Zomboid in almost 2 weeks, and we are so excited to finally be able to play some Zomboid and get to play with everybody.
Until next time, keep telling your stories, keep rolling those dice, and we'll see you in the next session.
Have a great one, guys. Thank you, everyone, for joining us, and we'll see you guys in a little bit. Where's my closing screen?